The Galactic Council had seen many strange things in its long history, but nothing like this. Inside the grand chamber aboard the Celestis Concorde, lights shimmered across polished metal walls as hundreds of alien representatives murmured in confusion and fear. For thousands of years, the Council had welcomed new civilizations into its fold with peace, guidance, and the offer of unity. Every species, no matter how primitive or proud, had eventually accepted. Until now. The latest species to achieve faster-than-light travel, humans from a distant blue planet called Earth, had not only ignored the Council's welcome, but they had sent a message so short and cold that it felt like a threat. We do not consent to diplomacy. Stand down. That was it. No greetings, no explanations. Silence followed. The chamber fell quiet as the message played again on the central holoscreen. A three-eyed ambassador from Yavor Prime dropped his drink. The Archenhive's drones clicked nervously in their hive language. Counselor Rulvek, a towering being made of silver mist, finally stood. "We must consider all possibilities," he said, voice echoing through the hall. This could be a misunderstanding. But deep down, even he didn't believe that. The humans had responded in perfect galactic standard language. There was no misunderstanding. They had heard the offer and refused. Panic grew quickly among the Council's members. Some feared the humans had discovered something terrible about the galaxy. Others believed the humans were unstable, or perhaps hiding some dark past. Why else would a species reject peace? A smaller group led by the militaristic Torgani Empire suggested force. "If they will not join us," one barked, "we must make them." But that idea only raised more fear. No one knew what kind of weapons Earth possessed, and some whispered that the humans were not as weak as they appeared. After all, their refusal was not emotional or angry, it was calm, measured, and final. That kind of confidence worried even the bravest generals. In the shadows above the chamber, a group of analysts monitored Earth's behavior. So far, human ships had not moved beyond their colonies. Their networks were silent to outside scans. Yet strange patterns in Earth's orbit showed signs of hidden satellites, encrypted signals, and formations too precise to be random. They were watching, listening, preparing, but for what? The Council had to act, so they voted to send a second message, this time offering full partnership, advanced technology, and peaceful trade. It was the most generous offer ever made. But again, silence followed. Not a single reply. It was as if humanity had already made up its mind. At first, some believed Earth might simply be scared. But those who studied human history found something else: wars, revolutions, and stories of survival against impossible odds. Humanity had always stood alone, often betrayed by others, even by their own kind. They had learned over centuries not to trust easily. The refusal wasn't fear, it was strategy. That realization struck the Council harder than any weapon could. What if the humans were not rejecting peace out of ignorance or fear, but because they believed peace was dangerous? A third message was sent, this time begging for a meeting. Still, nothing. Behind closed doors, Council leaders argued, shouted, and blamed each other. The truth was simple but terrifying. For the first time in galactic history, the Council had no control over the future. One species, one world, had changed everything without firing a single shot. Somewhere, far from the Council's reach, a human fleet moved in formation behind the moon. Hidden, quiet, patient. Earth was not looking for war. But it was ready for one. The Galactic Council had never felt so helpless, and the silence from Earth only made it worse. Days passed, then weeks, and still no reply from the humans. So the Council sent watchers, covert scout ships, probes, and disguised satellites, all hidden just beyond the edge of Earth's solar system. The mission was simple: observe everything and report any signs of danger. What they found was not comforting. Earth looked peaceful from a distance, full of green land and blue oceans, but the truth hid beneath the surface. Human ships moved in perfect formations between planets, their signals encrypted so tightly not even the Council's best codebreakers could understand them. Orbital stations circled Mars, silent but active, their designs sharp and unfamiliar. No radio chatter was open. No distress calls. No curiosity. It was like Earth was covered in a steel shell, nothing went out, and nothing was allowed in. One scout ship from the Iranian Union decided to get closer, slipping past Neptune and taking a hidden position near Mars. For several hours, all was quiet. Then, without warning, every system on the scout ship went dark. Engines shut down. Communications failed. And on the main screen appeared a message, short and chilling, "Leave now." Final warning. The crew panicked, trying to restart their systems, but another message appeared, "You were seen before you saw us." The ship's systems came back online 10 seconds later, and the crew didn't wait to find out what would happen next. They turned and fled. When the report reached the council, many were speechless. Earth didn't just notice the scout ship, they had controlled it, and they had let it go. This was not the behavior of a primitive world. This was precision, power, and control. New analysis began, and more hidden probes were sent, but Earth stayed quiet. Yet activity increased. Human ships began changing their travel routes without warning, shifting into what looked like new formations. Satellites repositioned in orbit. Deep space transmissions flickered in strange rhythms, possibly codes or training orders. The more the Council watched, the more uneasy they became. One recorded signal, brief and heavily encrypted, was finally cracked by the best minds on Kellen 4. It was a military simulation. The enemy in the scenario? The Council's fleet. Every ship class, every standard maneuver, every weakness. The humans had been preparing for them. The Council met in secret emergency sessions, their chambers now filled with fear instead of confidence. Some leaders demanded Earth be placed under full surveillance. Others wanted to send peacekeepers to show strength. But no one could agree, and no one dared attack. Humanity had made no threats, no demands, no hostile moves. They simply watched and prepared. On Earth, deep under the surface in a bunker hidden from all scans, Director Elias Wren of the United Earth Command studied the incoming data from Council spies. They knew the Council was watching, and they allowed it. Every move they made was part of a plan. Not to attack, but to show the galaxy that Earth was not a victim anymore. They thought silence meant fear. Wren said quietly to his team, "Let them wonder what silence really means." Back in the Council's central command, fear turned to paranoia. If Earth had such powerful defenses, what else were they hiding? Why didn't they respond? What were they building behind those locked frequencies and silent ships? Rumors spread. Some believed humans had uncovered ancient alien tech. Others feared Earth had made contact with beings even the Council didn't know. But no one had proof. All they had was silence and the heavy feeling that Earth was no longer the young species they expected. One quiet night aboard Celestis Concorde, a junior technician monitoring Earth signals picked up a sudden spike. Not a message, not a threat, just a quiet ping, like a heartbeat. It lasted 1 second and then vanished. Every sensor in the sector lit up, every listening post triggered. The technician froze. Earth had spoken, but no one knew what it meant. Some thought it was a mistake. Others thought it was a warning. One thing was certain, the silent planet was no longer silent by accident. It was listening, it was watching, and it was planning. The galaxy had always believed it was safe, that any new species would join the Great Alliance. But humanity had grown in the dark, shaped by pain, war, and betrayal. Now they had the power to speak, but chose not to. And that terrified the Council more than any weapon ever could. For weeks, the Galactic Council waited, watched, and debated, unsure what to do about Earth's silence. But everything changed one morning when the deep space sensors on the edge of Council territory began screaming alerts. A massive object had entered the sector without warning, a human ship, unlike anything ever recorded. Sleek, black, and silent, it moved like a shadow through space, ignoring all attempts to contact it. No ID codes, no flight plan, no reply. Panic spread quickly across the Council's central station, Celestis Concorde. Defense systems powered up, and hundreds of ships scrambled into position, forming a wall between the unknown vessel and the station. Every voice in the council chamber was raised in fear or anger. Some wanted to attack, others shouted for calm, but no one truly understood what the humans wanted. Then, before anyone could decide, the ship acted. Without firing a single weapon, it released a controlled electromagnetic pulse, an invisible wave that shut down every ship's engine and disabled most of the Council's communication systems. It was not violent, but it was clear the humans had complete control of the battlefield. Alarms flashed, lights flickered, and officers shouted across failing systems, but no attack came. Instead, the human ship, now identified as the Resolute, opened a single communication channel. A message was transmitted on all frequencies. It was not long, but it was powerful. Humanity observes. Humanity remembers. We warned you. You chose escalation. Then came silence again, but this time, the silence was heavier than before, full of meaning, full of purpose. Moments later, a human voice came through, calm and steady. The speaker introduced herself as Captain Amira Stone, commander of the Resolute, and official representative of Earth. She did not use fancy words or threats. She simply told a story, one that made the entire council chamber fall silent. She spoke of the first alien visitors to Earth long ago, unknown to the galaxy, who came not to talk, but to steal and study. Whole towns disappeared, records erased, people taken. Humanity was left with scars and secrets. They tried to signal for help. None came. Earth learned the hard way that the galaxy was not kind. So, instead of begging, they built. Instead of trusting, they planned. We reached the stars, she said, not to join you, but to survive you. The weight of her words crushed every doubt the council had. The silence had not been weakness, it had been strength. Controlled, careful strength. The human ship remained motionless in space, its weapons offline, its shields low, as if to say, we do not fear you. But no one moved against it. Not a single ship dared approach. The message had been clear. Earth had trained for war with the Council before the Council even knew Earth was out there. Captain Stone ended her speech with a final warning, soft but firm. But we will not be your subject. Attempt to control us again, and your fleets will not return home. Then the communication cut, and the Resolute disappeared in a flash of light, jumping back into human space without a trace. The council chamber sat in stunned silence. For the first time in its long history, the council had been forced to listen without speaking. Every representative looked around, unsure of what to say. Some were angry, others deeply afraid. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a single day. A species they once ignored now stood as an equal, perhaps even more. The humans had not attacked. They had not destroyed. But they had shown the galaxy something even more dangerous than power, control, patience, and knowledge. They knew the Council's fleets, strategies, and systems. They had studied everything, quietly, carefully, while the galaxy believed them weak and alone. Now that illusion was broken, and Earth's message was clear: speak carefully, or be silenced. The shock of Earth's message left the Galactic Council in chaos, and while the human ship, the Resolute, had disappeared without harm, its warning echoed through every chamber, every fleet, and every mind. Inside the Celestis Concord, the Council Hall was no longer a place of unity, but of division. Some members, like the peaceful scholars of Villarin and the quiet thinkers of Kalish, believed Earth should be left alone, respected, and observed from a distance. They saw wisdom in humanity's restraint, in how it acted with power, but without destruction. Others, like the Torgani generals and the harsh voice of the Brask Dominion, saw Earth's silence as an insult, its calm power as a challenge to council rule. If they are allowed to grow unchecked, growled Admiral Kor of the Brask, they will become stronger than all of us. Fear turned to anger. Anger turned to division. The council was breaking apart from within, and Earth had not even moved a single fleet. Meanwhile, across the human colonies, from Mars to Europa, from the orbital stations around Jupiter to the hidden bases near Saturn, the United Earth Command stood firm and focused. Humanity was not arguing or panicking. They were united. They had trained for years. planned in silence, and now that the galaxy had noticed them, they stood tall as one. Director Elias Wren watched the Council broadcast from his command center deep under Earth's surface. He knew what was happening. The Council would either fight itself or try to fight Earth. Either path would be dangerous. But humanity was ready. Behind him, holograms showed new ship deployments, updated defensive protocols, and the activation of Project Promethean Edge, a secret human gate network that would allow travel and communication across vast regions of space without using the Council system. It was a quiet message to the galaxy. Earth would not rely on anyone. Elsewhere in Council space, a dangerous decision was made in secret. A rogue admiral named Hasker, angry and proud, led a strike fleet of 12 ships toward Titan, one of humanity's outer colonies. His plan was simple: attack fast, destroy the outpost, and prove that the Council still had strength. But he had no idea what waited for him. As his ships approached Titan, the colony appeared quiet. No ships rose to meet him. No defenses were seen. Hasker smiled, confident he would win quickly. But as soon as his ships entered Titan's orbit, everything changed. A wave of light surged across the sky, and in less than 2 minutes, all 12 Council warships lost power. Their engines froze. Their weapons failed. Their systems collapsed. Automated drones appeared small, fast, and silent. They did not fire a single shot. They simply disabled every ship with perfect precision. Not a single life was taken. Not a single warning was given. Then a message played, quiet and cold. You chose escalation. We chose silence. You are free to leave. This time, the Council was stunned. The footage leaked within hours, and the truth was impossible to hide. Earth had stopped an entire fleet in seconds. No human soldiers had been seen. It had been a machine-controlled defense system, unmanned, automatic, and perfect. It was the clearest proof yet that Earth had prepared for everything. Now the Council was fully divided. Some demanded surrender and peace. Others shouted for revenge. But most were frozen by fear, unable to agree on any path forward. They realized too late that Earth had never been the one reacting. It had always been leading. In hidden meetings, Council leaders debated whether to attempt another contact with Earth. But no one wanted to provoke more silence, more precision. They feared what humanity might do if pushed again. On Earth, the people did not cheer or celebrate. They did not want war. But they were proud. For the first time in history, they were not under threat. They were not begging for peace. They were defending it with strength, with unity, and with calm. As news of the Titan incident spread, other species began to speak differently about Earth. Some young civilizations, long ignored by the Council, started reaching out to humanity in secret, asking for help, for protection, for guidance. Earth responded carefully, not with promises, but with respect. The balance of power in the galaxy had changed, and all without a single war. A planet once seen as primitive now stood as a force to be respected. The Council had failed to see it coming, and Earth had never needed them to. The galaxy held its breath on the day humanity chose to speak again, and this time, no one dared to interrupt. After the failed strike on Titan and the silent defeat of the Council fleet, Earth had said nothing for days, but then, without warning, every star system within Council reach received a signal at the exact same moment. It was not a threat or demand, it was an invitation. A single, clear message: humanity will speak at the edge of known space. Listen, or do not, but we will speak. The location was a quiet, neutral system long used for mining, far from the politics of the Council. Within hours, ships of every kind began to arrive. From the small scout vessels of the Lorian outworlds to the grand carriers of the Torgany, the system became a sea of waiting eyes. They didn't come to fight. They came because they had to know. What would humans say, and what would it mean for all of them? Even those who hated Earth then. Most could not stay away. Celestis Concord itself sent a high observer, not to lead, but to witness. On the edge of the gathering, a single human vessel appeared sleek and quiet, like a shadow stepping into sunlight. It carried no weapons, no guards, just one signal beacon. The ship's name blinked in soft white light, Unity. And when the communication line opened, there was no speech from generals or rulers. Instead, a middle-aged woman appeared on every screen, sitting calmly behind a plain desk, with no flag or symbol behind her. Her name was Dr. Lena Voss, a historian and diplomat. Her voice was steady, not loud or cold, but clear. She did not greet anyone by name. She did not praise the council or curse it. She simply began to speak, and the galaxy listened. She told the story of Earth, not the timeline. The long nights of survival. The wars not just between nations, but within minds. The need to grow without help, to learn through loss. She spoke of betrayal, of hidden visits from unknown alien ships long ago that had left only pain and silence behind. She described how Earth had called out to the stars again and again, and how no voice answered. So they stopped calling and started building. Not to conquer, not to hide, but to make sure that never again would they depend on others for survival. She said humanity had been afraid once, yes, but not anymore. Fear no longer rules us, she said quietly. Caution does. And strength, not strength to attack, but to endure. You judged us silent because we did not beg. You judged us cold because we did not kneel. But we were listening. And now, so are you. Around the galaxy, ships and stations replayed her words. In silent conference rooms, leaders leaned closer. On distant worlds, children watched the human face on their screens, wide-eyed. Dr. Voss ended with a simple truth. Earth would not join the council, but it would not stand against it either. It would walk its own path. Help when it chose. Defend when it must. Share when it trusted. Unity, she said, nodding to the ship's name, does not mean obedience. It means respect between equals. We offer ours to those who earn it. Nothing more. Nothing less. And with that, the signal ended. The human ship disappeared soon after, leaving the gathered fleet silent in its wake. But the silence was different, this time not empty, but full. Earth had not spoken in anger, not shouted or threatened. It had spoken with truth, and the truth had weight. On the Celestis Concord, the council leaders stood in silence for a long time. Then, for the first time in its history, the council chose to make no ruling. There would be no sanctions, no declarations, no forced alliance. Earth had done what no other species had ever done, made the galaxy listen, not with weapons, but with calm strength. And across the stars, something shifted. The young races, the hidden voices, the ignored colonies, they began to rise, inspired by a planet that once stood alone and now stood proud. Humanity had not won a war. It had not taken control. But it had earned something rarer than fear or power. It had earned respect. And from that day forward, the galaxy changed. Not with fire, but with silence, courage, and the quiet voice of a world that refused to be broken.